Hey there and welcome back. I'm excited to introduce a new car to the channel, my Barn Find 280Z race car. As you can see, this looks like a race car from Bob Sharp Racing, and I'm not sure it's exactly that. I think it's pretty close. I'm going to go over what I know this car is, what I think this car is, and what I think this car isn't, and then we'll take a look around the car and take a look at some of the details. Unfortunately, the owner of this car passed away, and so I was able to get no details from him. His family does not know anything about the car. They don't know where he got it. They don't know when he got it, but it has been in his family for quite a long time. The owner of this car has owned personal cars owned by Bob Sharp and Jim Fitzgerald. In fact, here's a picture of him with Fitzy. He also owned a Datsun 510 race car in Bob Sharp livery. I'm not sure which 510 this is, and I do not know where that car is today, but I do know that he sold the car many years ago. So I know the owner of this car had connections with Bob Sharp and Jim Fitzgerald, but I'm not quite sure this is one of the Bob Sharp race cars. As far as I can tell, all of those cars are accounted for. So what the heck do I have here? Looking around the car, there's some evidence of some old livery on it, and this says Geneva Coach, which is a car dealership in New York. There's also an SCCA inspection sticker from a race in New York. And using that information, I was able to determine that not only had the owner that I got the car from raced this in a few races, but I think this car was raced by Jeff Beckenbach from New York, which makes a lot of sense because he was located not too far from SharpSight Motorsports. Here is a picture from what I think is often mislabeled as the Bob Sharp Racing Garage. This is actually the shop of SharpSight. And in this picture, you can see two GTU 280Zs with the Datsun 240Z serial number 6 in the middle of them. And then in the background, I think is this GT2 280Z, along with the Bob Sharp GP Datsun Roadster, a Bob Sharp Datsun 510, which also looks a lot like the car that the previous owner of this car owned. And then over on the right in the back, the Newman Payton Camaro that Paul Newman raced. Looking at all of the information and pictures that I could find, I think that this is the SharpSight GT2 280Z race car. If we take a look at this car from this angle and then compare it to the SharpSight 280Z, one glaring difference is that the vintage picture shows an original bonnet that would open, and this car here has a one-piece nose on it. So that's one clue to me that would say maybe this is a replica of that car. But why would somebody make a replica of such an obscure car that nobody seems to be talking about, and that in all of the internet I can only find two pictures of? This car was obviously heavily raced when it was in New York, so maybe it had some front end damage and then this one-piece nose was installed on it instead of fixing the original bodywork. If we take a look at the original picture, we can see the gauges sticking way up in the air in the driver's face. And if we compare that to this picture of the car that I have here in the previous owner's garage, you can see the gauges were sticking way up in the air like that. The gauges now, though, have been lowered for better visibility. And there's another feature of the original car that I don't think someone would replicate. You can barely see the fire nozzle that's next to the dashboard in the original picture. And if we get close to this car, you can see it's right there as well. I think that's a pretty strange placement for a fire nozzle. And I think if someone were to make a replica of this car, they would not go to that kind of detail. Let's take a quick look around this car, and this red bumper on the front seems to be a feature that only the SharpSight car had. All of these quarter turn fasteners seem to also line up with the vintage pictures of the SharpSight car. This is a neat feature right here. This is the door latch. Flip that open, and then you can open the door. As you can see, this car does have the correct wheels on it, and these tires, I don't know how old they are, but they are in very bad shape. Both of the rear tires are no longer round. They do not hold air. You can see that they're cracked from sitting for so long. And by the way, in case you were wondering, these are 25.5 12/16s. And on the front, these are 23.5 10.5/16s. Coming around the rear of the car, you can see the tow hook there. And this rear hatch does open. If you look inside the window, you can see that there's a little window made in the bulkhead so that you can see through it. The old tire on this side of the car is in even worse shape. There is a transponder logo, so I'm hoping somewhere on this car the transponder is still in place and maybe I can get the number off of it. It's hard to see, it's really faint in the banner, but it does say Geneva Coach up here as well, whereas originally it would say SharpSight up here. Now let's take the panels off and take a closer look. All right, everything is stripped off of it. Let's take a look. Up front, we have some really nice brake ducts going over to the rotors. Looks like the radiator is getting its air ducted in from down in this area here. This half of the upper portion goes to the oil cooler. We have a Rebello engine with an N42 head, and it looks like we have triple Mikuni carburetors. There's one belt driving the oil pump, and it looks like there's an issue here. Looks like the belt for the water pump has jumped off and jumped behind the pulley. So they might have had an issue with this before it was put away. There's only one oil filter in line. I'm surprised there's not two. So you can see there's really good, easy access to everything on this car. And the panels literally came off in 30 seconds. We have 3 ignition coils, each doing 2 cylinders each. This is from Electromotive. Moving down below that, looks like this is the oil catch can, and then the battery would sit right in here. And looking behind there, the transmission is a TC840. We have an Anderson jump connector to jump start the car. The sump for the dry sump oil system will be in here. The NACA duct on this side is ducted over to go down to the differential cooler. And then next to that is a fan for a helmet blower for the driver. Here's a better look of that stuff from behind. And here in the back we have a fuel-safe fuel cell. We have the fire bottle, a breather for the rear end, and then dual fuel pumps and fuel filters. So there should be a selector switch for those somewhere up there. I guess they labeled this differential Black Max, and this is a 393 gear ratio. These hoses are so old they don't flex at all anymore. So I'm not even sure if I can put that back where it's supposed to go. That side has fallen off as well. Looking inside the car, we have an old harness. Expired 2007. And of course we have a full complement of race gauges. Then over here we have switches for the wipers. Must be a transmission cooler. I'm guessing this is the rear end cooler. We have both fuel pumps, our ignition, and then the starter, of course. There's another look of that fire nozzle. Then down here we have a brake bias control as well as a master kill switch. And then down here on the shifter we even have a lockout that we can put in place to keep us out of the gears we don't want to be in. Down next to me is the release for the fire system. And for pedals we have the gas pedal, the brake pedal, a tilting clutch pedal, and then we have a dead pedal to rest that foot on. For visibility we have one side mirror as well as a wink mirror that I like to have in all of my cars. Steering wheel says no oil, do not start. Looks like that duct tape's been on there a very long time. Unfortunately, it looks like there is no center cap. I was hoping to see maybe a Bob Sharp center cap in there, but no dice. It looks like the roof used to have a NACA duct, maybe to help cool the driver, but that has been sealed up now. Well, I think that's going to be it for today. If you know this car and if you have any vintage pictures of this car running back in the day, I would love to see them. I would love to know your story. I would like to hear what you know about this car. And of course, if you want to see more videos like this, comment below and click subscribe.